Hey everybody, so since this is the first episode ever, I kind of want to just give a very quick description of myself and what this channel is going to be all about. So, my name is Shane and I'm a big fan of reading and having stories read to me. I love audio books and I figured I'd start up this channel. I already have a beauty and a vlogging channel. That information will always be down in the description if you want to see anything else done by me. But I want to start this channel to be able to express my love of reading and books to other book and story lovers. So I don't know the exact schedule of this channel yet. Within a few days, I will have a schedule. But I wanted to be reading 2 books at once, so if you don't like one book, maybe you'll like the other book, so I'll be doing one novel and one shorter story at the same time, not on the same days though, so they'll probably alternate between days. I hope that makes some sense, but I also wanted to start this channel because I am not a terrific speaker. I tend to stutter more often than I would like to and kind of trip over my words, so I figured this could be a fun way to practice my speech and practice pronunciating and all that fun stuff. So it's not going to be a perfect read through. I might stutter, I might mess up a word, and I hope you guys will forgive me for that. So the first book that I decided to pull out was The Host from Stephenie Meyer. I have already read this novel years and years and years ago, but I wanted to reintroduce myself into it because it is such a fantastic book. So with that being said, let's begin our first episode. Prologue. Inserted. The healer's name was Ford Deepwaters. Because he was a soul, by nature he was all things good, compassionate, patient, honest, virtuous, and full of love. Anxiety was an unusual emotion for Ford Deepwaters. Irritation was even rarer. However, because Ford Deepwaters lived inside a human body, irritation was sometimes inescapable. As the whispers of the healing students buzzed in the far corner of the operating room, his lips pressed together into a tight line. The expression fell out of place on a mouth more often given to smiling. Darren, his regular assistant, saw the grimace and patted his shoulder. "They're just curious, Fords," he said quietly. An assertion is hardly interesting or a challenging procedure. Any soul on the street could perform it in an emergency. There's nothing for them to learn by observing today. Fords was surprised to hear the sharp edge marring his normally soothing voice. "They've never seen a full-grown human before," Darren said. Ford raised one eyebrow. "Are they blind to each other's faces? Do they not have mirrors?" "I know what you mean. A wild human. Still soulless. One of the insurgents." Ford looked at the girl's unconscious body, laid out face down on the operating table. Pity swelled in his heart as he remembered the condition of her poor, broken body had been in when the Seekers had brought her to the healing facility. So much pain she endured. Of course she was perfect now, completely healed. Fords had seen to that. "She looks the same as any of us," Fords murmured to Darren. "We all have human faces, and when she wakes up, she'll be one of us too. It's just exciting for them, that's all. The soul we implant today deserves more respect than to have her host body gawked at this way. She'll already have far too much to deal with as she acclimates. It's not fair to put her through this." By this, he did not mean the gawking. Fords heard the sharp edge return to his voice. Darren patted him again. "It will be fine. The seeker needs information and..." As the word seeker, Ford gave Darren a look that could only be described as a glare. Darren blinked in shock. "I'm sorry," Fords apologized at once. "I didn't mean to react so negatively. It's just that I fear for this soul." His eyes moved to the syro tank on his stand beside the table. The light was a steady, dull red indicating that it was occupied and in hibernation mode. "This soul was specifically picked for the assignment," Darren said soothingly. "She is exceptional among our kind, braver than the most. Her lives speak for themselves. I think she would volunteer if it were possible to ask her." "Who among us would not volunteer if asked to do something for the greater good? But is that really the case here? Is the greater good served by this? The question is not her willingness, but what it is right to ask any soul to bear." The healing students were discussing the hibernating soul as well. Fords could hear the whispers clearly. Their voices were rising now, getting louder with their excitement. "She's lived on 6 planets. I heard 7. I heard she never lived 2 terms as the same host species. Is that possible? She's been almost everything. A flower, a bear, a spider, a seaweed, a bat, even a dragon. I don't believe it. Not 7 planets. At least 7. She started on the Origin." "Really? The Origin?" "Quiet, please," Fords interrupted. "If you cannot observe professionally and silently, then I will have to ask you to remove yourselves." Abashed, the 6 students fell silent and edged away from one another. "Let's get on with this, Darren." Everything was prepared. The approximate medicines were laid out beside the human girl. Her long dark hair was secured beneath a surgical cap, exposing her slender neck. Deeply sedated, she breathed slowly in and out. Her sun-browned skin had barely a mark to show for her accident. "Begin thaw sequence now, please, Darren." The gray-haired assistant was already waiting behind the syro tank, his hand resting on the dial. He flipped the safety back and spun down on the dial. The red light atop the gray small cylinder began to pulse, flashing faster as the seconds passed, changing color. Fords concentrated on the unconscious body. He edged a scalpel through the skin at the base of the subject's skull with a small, precise movements, and then sprayed on the medication that stilled the excess flow of blood before he widened the fissure. Fords delved delicately between the neck muscles, careful not to injure them, exposing the pale bones at the top of the spinal column. "The soul is ready, Fords," Darren informed him. "So am I. Bring her." Fords felt Darren at his elbow and knew, without looking, that his assistant would be prepared. His hand stretched out in waiting. They had worked together for many years now. Fords held the gap open. "Send her home," he whispered. Darren's hand moved into view, the silver gleam of an awakening soul in his cupped palm. Fords never saw an exposed soul without being struck by the beauty of it. The soul shone in the brilliant lights of the operating room, brighter than the reflective silver instrument in his hand. Like a living ribbon, she twisted and rippled, stretching, happy to be free of the syro tank. Her thin, feathery attachment, nearly thousands of them, billowed softly like pale silver hair. Though they were all lovely, this one seemed particularly graceful to 4 deep waters. He was not alone in his reaction. He heard Darren's soft sigh, heard the admiring murmurs of the students. Gently, Darren placed a small glistening creature inside the opening Fords had made in the human's neck. The soul slid smoothly into the offered space, weaving herself into the alien anatomy. Fords admired the skill in which she possessed her new home. Her attachments wound tightly into the space around the nerve centers, some elongating and reaching deeper to where he couldn't see. Under and up into the brain, the optic nerves, the ear canals. She was quick, very firm in her movements. Soon, only one small segment of her glistening body was visible. "Well done," he whispered to her, knowing that she could not hear him. The human girl was the one with ears, and she still slept soundly. It was a routine matter to finish the job. He cleaned and healed the wound, applied the salve that sealed the incision closed behind the soul, and then brushed the scar-softening powder along the line left on her neck. "Perfect as usual," said the assistant, who, for some reason unfathomable to Fords, had never made a change from his human host named Darren. Fords sighed. I regret this day's work. You're only doing your duty as a healer. This is the rare occasion when healing creates an injury. Darren began to clean up the workstation. He didn't seem to know how to answer. Ford's was filling his calling. That was enough for Darren, but not enough for Ford Deepwaters, who was a true healer to the core of his being. He gazed anxiously at the human female's body, peaceful in slumber, knowing that this peace would soon be shattered as soon as she woke. All the horror of this young woman's end would be borne by the innocent soul he had just placed inside her. As he leaned over the woman and whispered in her ear, Ford wished feverishly that the soul inside her could hear him now. Good luck, little wanderer. Good luck. How I wish you didn't need it. Please excuse me as I take a sip of water. Chapter 1. Remembered. I knew it would begin with the end, and the end would look like death to these eyes. I had been warned. Not these eyes, mine. This was me now. The language I found myself using was odd, but it made sense. Choppy, boxy, blind, and linear. Impossibly crippled in comparison to many I'd used, yet still it managed to find fluidity and expression, sometimes beauty. My language now, my native tongue. With the truest instinct of my kind, I bound myself securely into the body's center of thought, twined myself inescapably into its every breath and reflex until it was no longer a separate entity. It was me, not the body, my body. I felt the sedation wearing off and lucidity taking its place. I braced myself for the onslaught of the first memory, which would really be the last memory, the last moments this body had experienced, the memory of the end. I had been warned thoroughly of what would happen now. These human emotions would be stronger, more vital than the feelings of any other species I had been. I had tried to prepare myself. The memory came, and as I had been warned, it was not something that I could have ever prepared for. It seared with sharp color and ringing sound, cold on her skin, pain gripping her limbs, burning them. The taste was fiery and metallic in her mouth, and there was a new sense, the fifth sense I had never had, that took the particles from the air and transformed them into strange message and pleasures and warnings in her brain. Sense. They were distracting, confusing to me, but not to her memory. The memory had no time for the novelties of smell. The memory was only fear. Fear locked her in a vice, gloating the blunt, clumsy limbs forward, but hampering them at the same time. To flee, to run, it was all she could do. I failed. The memory that was not mine was so frighteningly strong and clear that it sliced through my control, overwhelmed the detachment, the knowledge that this was just a memory and not me. Sucked into hell that was the last minute of her life. I was she, and we were running. It's so dark. I can't see. I can't see the floor. I can't see my hand stretched out in front of me. I run blind and try to hear the pursuit I can feel behind me, but the pulse is so loud in my ears it drowns everything else out. It's so cold, it shouldn't matter now, but it hurts. I'm so cold. The air in her nose was uncomfortable. Bad, a bad smell. For 1 second, that discomfort pulled me free of the memory. But it was only a second, and then I was dragged in again, and my eyes filled with horrified tears. I'm lost. We're lost. It's over. They're right behind me now, loud and close. There are so many footsteps. I am alone. I've failed. The seekers are calling. The sound of their voices twists my stomach. I'm going to be sick. It's fine, one lies, trying to calm me, to slow me. Her voice is disturbed by the effort of her breathing. Be careful, another shouts in warning. Don't hurt yourself, one of them pleads, a deep voice full of concern. Concern. Heat shot through my veins and a violent hatred nearly choked me. I had never felt such an emotion as this in all my life. For another second, my revulsion pulled me away from the memory. A high, shrill keening pierced my ears and pulsed in my head. The sound scraped through my airways. There was a weak pain in my throat. Screaming, my body explained. You're screaming. I froze in shock, and the sound broke off abruptly. This was not a memory. My body, she was thinking, speaking to me. But the memory was stronger in that moment than my astonishment. Please, they cry. There is danger ahead. The danger is behind, I scream back in my mind. But I see what they mean. A feeble stream of light, coming from who knows where, shines on the end of the hall. It's not that the flat wall or the locked door, the dead end I feared and expected. It's a black hole, an elevator shaft, abandoned, emptied, and condemned like this building. Once a hiding place, now a tomb. A surge of relief floods through me as I race forward. There is a way, no way to survive, but perhaps a way to win. No, no, no! This thought was all mine, and I fought to pull myself away from her. But we were together, and we sprinted for the edge of death. Please, the shouts are more desperate. I feel like laughing when I know that I am fast enough. I imagine their hands clutching for me just inches behind my back. But I am as fast as I need to be. I don't even pause at the end of the door. The hole rises up to meet me mid-stride. The emptiness swallows me. My legs flail, useless. My hands grip the air, claw through it, searching for anything solid. Cold blows past me like a tornado winds. I hear the thud before I feel it. The wind is gone, and the pain is everywhere. Pain is everything. Make it stop. Not high enough, I whisper to myself through the pain. When will the pain end? When? The blackness swallowed up the agony, and I was weak with gratitude that the memory had finally come to its most final of conclusions. The blackness took all, and I was free. I took a breath to steady myself, as was this body's habit. My body. But then the color rushed back, and the memory reared up and engulfed me again. No, I panicked, fearing the cold and the pain and the very fear itself. But this was not the same memory. This was a memory within a memory, a final memory, like a last gasp of air, yet somehow even stronger than the first. The blackness took all of this. A face. The face was as alien to me as the faceless serpentine tentacles of my last host body who would be new this body. I'd seen this kind of face in the images I had been given to prepare for this world. It was hard to tell them apart, to see any tiny variations in color and shape, and that there were only markers of the individual. So much the same, all of them. Noses center in the middle of a sphere, eyes above and mouths below, ears around the sides. A collection of senses, all but touch, concentrated in one place. Skin over bones, hair growing on the crown and in strange furry lines above the eyes. Some had more fur lower down on the jaw. Those were always the males. The color ranged through the brown scale from the pale cream to an almost black. Aside from that, how to know one from another? This face I would have known among millions. This face was hard rectangle and the shape of the bones strong under the skin. In color, it was a light golden brown. The hair was just a few shades darker than the skin, except where flaxen streaks lightened it, and it only covered the head and the odd fur stripes above the eyes. The circular irises and the white eyeballs were darker than the hair, but, like the hair, reflected with light. There were small lines around the eyes, and her memories told me that the lines were from smiling and squinting into sunlight. I knew nothing of what passed for beauty among these strangers, and yet I knew that this face was beautiful. I wanted to keep looking at it. As soon as I realized this, it disappeared. Mine, spoke the alien, thought that should not have existed. Again I was frozen, stunned. There should have been no one here but me, and yet this thought was so strong and so aware. Impossible! How was she still here? This was me now. Mine. I rebuked her, the power and authority that belonged to me alone flowing through the word. Everything is mine. So why am I talking back to her? I wondered as the voices interrupted my thoughts. So that is the very first episode, guys. So these episodes are going to be roughly about 20 minutes long. So I hope you guys are enjoying so far. If you are, please leave a big thumbs up. And you can also subscribe if you don't want to miss any more of this story. And we will be picking out a short story. If you guys have any suggestions for any books that you would like me to read, let me know down in the comments, and I look forward to hearing from you guys again. So until the next episode, I'll see you next time. Bye!